Well, good day to you. It is September the 22nd, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a good day. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs if you are new. Welcome you back if you have, of course, been here before. And as always, just point out, especially if you haven't even noticed it, I have in the description portion of these videos a bunch of links. And those links take you to websites that give you really good background information about what we talk about. So hopefully you'll look into it if you want to know more about what we talk about here. Now, I also would like to encourage questions, comments, and you can join the discussion however you want to do. Like I said, you can post your comment, you can post your question in the comment section, you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com, or you could do probably what I would do if I was in your shoes and just listen and not say a word. So however you want to join the discussion, that's fantastic. Now, I also would like to thank those people who did join the discussion by doing something other than just listening, and they actually took the time out of the day to post comments and questions and that kind of thing. Zach Laney, Ernesto Meija, Mark Hill, Nick Giant, and Spirit Watcher 178. Thank you, everybody, for joining the discussion and commenting. All right, now I have an email from a Donald Williams. Let's see what it has to say. In brief introduction, I am Sergeant Donald Williams, a personal aide to Anastasia Kotsvitska, wife of former Ukrainian MP Igor Kotvitsky. I got your contact from a reliable source, and I have a great business proposal that needs your immediate attention to send the total sum of 9.6 million euros to you via a diplomat in your country. All right, so I got that to look forward to. I am rich. You guys heard it first. I'm sure you've gotten emails like that before. No, seriously, this is a serious email. Coming from Spirit Watcher 178, I'll try to answer this one first because I think this will be the easiest one. Okay, as you have experienced Maitreya, I experienced my own Master Jesus with a definite confirmation to move forward on this. Here's my question. This Jesus in London awaiting his day of declaration, I know him as Lucifer Rothschild, born 666, on Jekyll Island, Georgia. All signs and roads lead to this one man as the Little Horn, son of perdition, Antichrist in my own research. Can you prove through your master that this man and this Jesus that lives in London isn't one in the same? Thank you. Well, I can prove it about as well as I can prove that you are not the same person as that person. So, no, of course I can't prove anything like that. Do I think he's the same person? No. Do I think that you're digging in the right spot when it comes to who the Antichrist was or is or whatever? No, I don't think so at all. According to the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, the Antichrist is an energy and not a person. And it's got a purpose, and we're going to talk about the Lords of Materiality based off a question that Zach Laney asked, but so I can kind of segue into it. But the Antichrist that was written in Revelation was not meant to be interpreted as an individual. And so it's an energy that's sent out before the teacher comes to really destroy the old ways of thinking and relating to allow a new way of thinking and relating to occur. The first beast that was written in the Bible that John was talking about was Nero. That energy was sent through him. It destroyed the old ways of thinking of the Roman times to allow Christendom to flourish. In fact, Christianity and what we think of and know of and historically and everything would not have flourished in the way that it had it not been for that energy being sent out through Nero. It's very destructive. I don't want to be around when it's released, but it serves a purpose. It was released again through the Axis powers of World War I and World War II. You can't really say that Hitler was the Antichrist, but he sure was the face of the franchise, if you know what I mean. And then it will be re-released another 3,000 years from now. And where it was written in the Bible is the beast is chained back for a time and a half, and there's this relative peace. That's what John was speaking of. So this person who you speak of, I have no idea who this person is, don't know anything about it, but can I prove it? That he and Maitreya, who lives in London, not Jesus, but Maitreya who lives in London, are not the same person? I don't know what to tell you. You know what I'm saying? So you'll just have to believe what you believe. But I do think, and I know you won't listen to me on this just as everybody else doesn't listen to me on this either. You really got better things to do with your time than to try to dig up who and what the Antichrist is, because it's already come and gone, and it will be another 3,000 years before we see it again. But Anyway, that's just my little 2 cents. Just a tip from your Uncle Gary, as they say. All right, now Zach Laney asked a few questions. First, he goes, who are the Lords of Materiality exactly? Whew. Well, I don't know exactly who they are anyway, but I can try to talk a little bit about it because I had mentioned it before in a previous video. One thing to realize, to really think about too, when it comes to discussing the Lords of Materiality and so forth, is really from the masters themselves. They'll tell you they're not the greatest danger to what's facing humanity. It's the inertia of humanity that's the problem. The crippling inertia, as they put it. They can handle the forces of darkness very easily in terms of counteracting what they're doing. It does sometimes take some extra time for them to do it, but they can do it quite well. But the Lords of Materiality, from what I understand it to be, are holdovers and remnants from the previous solar system, the previous incarnation of our solar system, when our solar system, the highest level of spirituality was involution, which is spirit going into matter. Now the highest point or the highest form of spirituality is evolution, spirit going out of matter. So it's a time that I don't know much about. I can't really relate to it, other than the fact that I probably wouldn't want to be around during that time. So as tough as things are today, I'd rather take it as it is today versus eons upon billions of years ago when the previous solar system, when involution was the highest form of spirituality. I can't even imagine what that even would look like. But anyway, yeah, it's all a part of the yin yangs of spirit into matter, matter into spirit, and all that kind of stuff. But their work serves a purpose. It has to do with keeping the planet really together. And where it becomes evil, their work becomes evil, is when they don't stay in their lane, so to speak, and they start to interfere into the evolution of humanity and keeping humanity from evolving in a natural course. And so however long that's been, I don't know, but it's been at least since the tail end of the Atlantean period, because according to the masters, their work influenced humanity equally as did the forces of light, or the masters of wisdom, who I talk about. Work influenced humanity roughly equally between the two groups. Now there's supposed to be 6 of them. 3 in the East and 3 in the West. 2 worked through Hitler during the time of when Hitler was alive. And so when you see speeches from Hitler, he was actually being obsessed by one or other of those 2. And that's what made his work so powerful, his words so powerful, to really unite a nation to do a lot of evil, really. Hitler's problem was he was a medium. And that's how he was able to be used in that way. So the karma, according to Benjamin Creme's master, the majority of the negative karma that all the evil that he did, falls on those 2 lords of materiality that worked through him, not so much through Hitler. Hitler's karma has to do with the fact that he allowed himself to be used in that way. But when we talk about being overshadowed, like Benjamin Creme used to be overshadowed by his master and my Maitreya. Mozart was overshadowed by his master and so forth. And Rembrandt was overshadowed by his master and Maitreya as well. Every time that happens, the master never infringes upon the disciples' free will. They actually ask him if it's okay for them to do this. And so they don't go into a trance or anything like this. Now, when the Lords of Materiality work through their disciples in that way, they take them over and obsess them for whatever time. And there's no asking of, is it okay? They just do it. And so they infringe their free will. And so looking at it, according to, if you were to look at them objectively, the Lords of Materiality and the Masters of Wisdom are almost identical in terms of their abilities, except for one thing. The Lords of Materiality and those masters don't have any love. They're devoid of all love. So, but eventually, their work will be sealed back to their own domain. And, it's actually one of the stanzas from the Great Invocation where it says, from the center, which we call the race of man, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. And that's what its purpose is of the Great Invocation, which is an invocation that was given out through Alice Bailey in 1945, that it's been said that even Maitreya says it every day. But the work and activity of the forces of darkness was they were supposed to be sealed off to their own domain after the defeat of the Axis powers. Where it became a problem was, according to the Master DK, when he talked about it, that the door was closing on them. And they got their foot in the door, kept the door from closing all the way, and they were able to kind of scoot back into keeping and influencing humanity. And it happened when they influenced the powers that be of the United Nations and the United States and Britain and France to reinstate the state of Israel. And when they moved all the Palestinians off and they created the state of Israel, that was under the direct influence of the forces of darkness. And so it's done nothing but destabilize the Middle East since then. I mean, so as Jesus says, a tree is known by its fruit. Well, what was the fruit of that seed? You know what I'm saying? That tree, was nothing, terrorism, war, bloodshed. I mean, it was crazy. But, and ever since, there were 3 more points of darkness that reemerged, different than the Axis powers. So they're in different locations than Germany, Italy, and Japan, and at a lesser rate, but still very powerful and still very much influencing world affairs today, which is why we have the world that we live in today. The first one, the most powerful one, is in the Zionist movement in Israel. The next one manifested in the Pentagon, which is, if you don't know where the Pentagon sits, it's right on the other side of the Potomac from Washington, D.C. And according to the masters, that nefarious energy in the Pentagon influences every single presidential administration since the forming of the military-industrial complex, as they say, to a greater or lesser extent. The Democratic presidents have been used by them too, and influenced by them, but at a lesser degree than the Republican presidents have. And then the third and final one, and this one's actually pretty clear to see too, is in Eastern Europe, somewhere around where Yugoslavia used to sit. So if you look at the genocides that happened under Milosevic, that was, of course, a direct result of that nefarious energy in that area, part of the world. And so when the masters come out fully, humanity will start to look to them for guidance in that kind of way. And it will seal off the work and activity and the influence of the forces of materiality for several thousand years. And there will be a relative peace. And it's written in the Bible, it says the beast is chained back for a time and a half. That time and a half is not a month and a half or a year and a half. It's actually the entire length of the Aquarian age and half of the Capricorn age. And so then it will be re-released again, and there will be another great battle, which we shouldn't have to worry about or talk about because that's so far away. And then after that, Earth will take the ensouling body of our planet will take another great initiation, that the equivalent of the third or the transfiguration on its level, and our planet will become what's called a sacred planet amongst the other planets in our solar system. So planets like Venus and Jupiter and Saturn, Neptune, Uranus are all sacred planets. They've all taken this initiation. But anyway, but then like I said, but the work and activity of the Lords of Materiality is not nearly as dangerous or as detrimental to the progress of humanity as is the inertia of humanity, but still very much influential nonetheless. And to get to your other questions, I read that the master who was Abraham Lincoln lives in Washington, D.C. Can you tell us more about this figure? He, as of the writing of Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, I think it was, that he was asked that question, Abraham Lincoln was only a 4th degree initiate, not a master. Abraham Lincoln came from a planet called Vulcan. It's not where Spock is from Star Trek, but it's a planet in our solar system that is hidden by the sun. So our astronomers can't see it because of the road. When our planet goes around the sun, it's kind of going around the same way on the other side. So, but it's a very advanced planet on par with, let's say, Venus. Now, Abraham Lincoln is a human avatar coming from a higher to the lower for some form of service. He either, and I don't think Ben ever explained it, whether I'm assuming he fell to Earth's evolution as did, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci and Shakespeare and those people who are also human avatars in their own right. And historically that's the case with them. They're not from our human evolution, but incarnated for several lifetimes and then had the lifetime that they had that we were familiar with. But he was Abraham Lincoln's, if you know anything about the rays, he was almost pure first ray, which the first ray can be very destructive, but it can also synthesize in a way that the other rays can't. So if you look at his work that he did during the time of the Civil War, right, when he was president, he kept the country together in a time that it was being ripped in half. And I don't think anybody other than somebody of his stature and his ray makeup could have done that. And if you look at some of the other figures who were around the same point in evolution, Mao Zedong would be one, who a lot of people, he gets a lot of bad press in this country, but he brought, nearly 1 billion people into the 20th century in China and synthesized and unified it and made it one country. He couldn't have done that if he wasn't a first ray, almost pure first ray, just as Lincoln was a pure first ray. But according to Ben's master, again, he's a fourth degree initiate living in Washington, D.C. as a mid-level diplomat, and will eventually, at some point, be looked to and asked for his advice and his experience and his guidance on the affairs of the United States, however that will look. So whether he's been doing that already, I don't know. But he also, which is kind of an interesting factoid about this guy, he sends his energy and his love on a daily basis through the Washington, not the Washington, what am I thinking of? The Lincoln Memorial. So he sends his energy through there out into the world. So quite an extraordinary guy. But maybe we'll eventually know who he is. Maybe we'll never know who he is. I guess it doesn't really matter. He's doing something. So given the state of affairs of politics in this country now, he's probably working pretty hard. So, all right. Now this is a funny question. Also, what initiation do you think Trump is at? I was thinking between 2 and 3. That is a fine example, Zach, of go home and look at it again. Excuse me to cough while I laugh, but I'll give you a little hint, a little cheat. He's nowhere near the 2nd or 3rd degree initiation. If you look at the figures, I mean, it's important to keep things into perspective, and not to look at it subjectively, right? So I'm not saying this because I don't like the guy, and I think he's been very dangerous to this country and the world as a whole, because there are a lot of people who are up at that level who are more dangerous to the world as a whole and done more damage than he probably did. So it's not that. It's just looking at the quality of his life, looking at his perspective, looking at the way that he talks, looking at his inability to think on some level. I would not put him anywhere near the 2nd or 3rd degree initiation. And those people who are up at that level are very powerful in their own right, but also have a tremendous amount of control over their own makeup. And at least in terms of a 2nd degree initiate, the physical and the emotional desire nature. And he doesn't seem like he has that at all. And so just my humble opinion on the whole thing. The other thing too is, when it comes to the Lords of Materiality, I would have asked Ben this question if he was alive, but given the fact that he was just a real estate developer in New York and around certain areas and so forth, mainly in New York, dabbled into politics here or there. He was more of a showman, always kind of to want to kind of be a part of the show and all that kind of stuff. And then to become president, and then to have this huge following of people that see him as the Messiah, that's not normal. And it's not because of his point in evolution that's doing it. I think he's being used by the forces of materiality in this way. And the people, the evangelical Christians who are swept up into who they think Trump is, all evidence to the contrary. Really, all evidence to the contrary, if you really look at it, right? And even when you talk to them and try to pin them down on it, they still have no answer to it. They still agree with you, but yet they go right back into believing what they believe, and you can't turn them away from any of that, right? I think that's a direct result of the forces of darkness. They're using their own religious infatuation with him and their own religious dogma, I guess is another way of looking at it, against that group. And that's what's making him so powerful. And so I don't think it has much to do with Donald Trump. I think it has to do with the Lords of Materiality. And They're doing it, I think, because, and this is just my opinion, I think they're doing it because Maitreya is already on TV and at any moment could come and make himself known at any moment, in terms of maybe not coming right out and saying it on TV, but the day of declaration could really happen at any time now that Maitreya is on TV. And the forces of darkness and the forces of light are really like two sides of a magnet. You know, one side is the negative pole, the other side's the positive pole, so to speak. And it seems like the more influence that the forces of light are starting to have on humanity for good, the forces of darkness go in almost equal and opposite reaction to it. And so then the real problem is, it's not so much their activity that's causing the holding humanity back, but humanity, the inertia of humanity is crippling, according to the masters. And I think that they use that to keep humanity back, to hold humanity back. And then they use very divisive figures like people like Donald Trump, who in and of himself would never have been able to have such love to where people think he's a godlike figure, believe me, if it wasn't for them doing what they do. You know, that's just my humble opinion. But anyway, hopefully that answers that question. But you guys take care. Love everyone. Thanks for the questions. Look forward to more questions and comments in the future. Take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.